Hello YouTube and welcome to Just My Opinion UK. Today bringing you a video about the Tudor Black Bay GMT reference 79830RB. This is Tudor's GMT watch which was released in 2018 at Baselworld. Now this watch, stole the show somewhat because very surprisingly Tudor brought this watch out at the same time as Rolex brought the PEPSI dial back to their range. So it was a bit surprising that Rolex allowed their little brother, Tudor, to bring out a PEPSI at the same time. So it was a little bit of a shock to everybody in the watch scene. They were all a bit surprised by the Tudor's release of this, and even more surprised by the fact that Rolex allowed it to happen. So, the Tudor is, it's a contender. It's a watch that is up there with the greats. It's a very, very nice movement, very, very nice watch. So let's get into it. So this is the reference 79830RB, as mentioned before. Tudor's Black Bay. It's one of the Black Bay line, which is obviously Tudor's heritage line going back to the days of old. We've got the 200-meter diving capability, which is standard on the Black Bay range. This is the GMT version. It's a 41mm case and it's got the it's Tudor's own caliber. So it's Tudor own movement, which is the MT5652, which is a COSC certified movement. The movement is a very, very nice movement. It's got a 70-hour power reserve, so very impressive. Like I said, this is made by Tudor, so it's an in-house movement. There's no ETAs, nothing like that here. So very, very nice watch, very, very nice movement. Slightly chunky on the wrist. If we bring it into shot here, you can see, excuse the markings, you can see that it's a chunky, it's a chunky watch. It is a chunky piece on the wrist, but a welcome change to the Rolex. The Rolex set, does sit a little bit more slender on the wrist. The Tudor has a bit more presence. It does sit very, very nicely. I wouldn't recommend it on the wrist of somebody with, slight wrists, somebody who's got, quite small wrists. It is something for a more larger wrist circumference. Obviously, I'm a bigger build, so it's ideal for me. Anybody who has got a small wrist would probably struggle. You would run the risk of this watch dwarfing your wrist. But I find that the 41mm Tudor is a very, very nice size to have. So I'm not going to bore you with the information about the GMT. Obviously, this is a GMT bezel. The GMT hand, the hour hand here. You can set that so it goes to the time that you're in. You've got the GMT hand here, which is set to Greenwich Mean Time, and then you've got the rotating bezel, which will track your third time zone. So this watch can track 3 different time zones at one time. We've got the date window at the 3 o'clock position. No Cyclops, which is a nice thing to see because Rolex, obviously on their GMTs, do have the Cyclops window. I personally love the fact that this doesn't have the Cyclops. Very, very nice. I do own the Rolex GMT as well. As you know, I've got the Batman, but the Cyclops is just something that you either love or hate. Me personally, I'm not a fan because when you turn the watch on an angle like that, you can't see the date. The Cyclops, you've got to be looking at the watch dead on to see the date. So the Cyclops isn't something that I would particularly want in a watch, which is, thumbs up to Tudor for not doing that. We've got the domed sapphire crystal, obviously, and, it won't scratch. We've got the aluminium bezel. So this is, I think it's fair to say, you can compare the Tudor Black Bay GMT to the Rolex GMTs of old, sort of mid-2000s and before. It's not a ceramic bezel. It's more in keeping with what Rolex set out to be, which was a tool watch. Something that I think the GMT Tudor has, it's got the essence of what Rolex was 20 years ago or 15 years ago. It's a tool watch. The GMTs in the Rolex line now have gone a little bit on the blingy side. They've got a little bit, on the previous Batman, there was the center links here that was all brushed, all polished, with the outer links all brushed. The Rolex GMTs are just a little bit more on the blingy side, whereas the Tudor is a lot more tool watch orientated, with the brushed center links, the brushed outer links, obviously polishing on the end links there. You can see they've gone for a sort of a rivet effect on the bracelet. This is just a rivet effect. It's not actual rivets. It is a bit of a Marmite feature. Some people love it, some people hate it. It is a nod to the past. So this watch very much in keeping with the Tudor's heritage line, keeping the Tudor rose there as well, which obviously I'm an Englishman, I'm from England, that is I like to see that, the Tudor rose, very, very nice feature. We've got the Tudor shield on the face of the watch. GMT, it's just a nice, plain, simple, does what it says on the tin watch. It's very, very nicely done. Snowflake hands, snowflake on the end of the GMT hand. Again, nod to the past. A non-display back, so there's no, it's very much, like its big brother Rolex, they don't bother putting anything on the back of the watch. There's no, there's no case back, there's no, there's nothing, you can't see the movement at the back, there's no display back or anything like that. It is just a plain back, same as the Rolex. Screw down crown, water resistant to 200 meters. So this is by no means an amateur watch. This is, people always think, because Tudor, they always think, oh, it's a poor man's Rolex. And I've heard that said on many occasions. That is not the case. Granted, in years gone by, Tudor was the watch that you would buy if you couldn't afford the Rolex. But nowadays, people are actually purchasing the Tudor because they prefer the Tudor, or because they want the Tudor, not because they can't afford the Rolex. Me personally, I own the Rolex. I've got a Rolex Submariner and I've got a Rolex GMT. And I choose to have the Tudor in my collection as well, because I like the watch. I like what Tudor have done with the watch, and I like the Black Bay line. I like the heritage line. Some lovely features that Tudor have done. The fact that they've incorporated the shield here in their clasp. The bottom of the watch here, it's a one-piece shield. They've just done some really nice little design details like that. Some things that I think Tudor are a little bit more daring than Rolex. Tudor do things that Rolex wouldn't do. They are prepared to think outside the box. Like I've said, compare this watch to a vintage Rolex, something maybe 15 years old. Don't compare it to the modern ceramic Rolex, because this, obviously the ceramic Rolex is the better watch. I'm not disputing that. But if you compare this to a Rolex GMT from 15 years ago, I believe the Tudor is the better watch. It's better built, it's got a better movement, it's a lovely, stunning case. We've got some lovely polish there. We've got a lovely polished bevel edge on here with the brushed steel here with the if you can just make out just a really, really nice beveling on there. The lovely polished finish on the watch. It's it's not blingy. It's not a blingy watch. It's just absolute pure class. Very, very much tool watch orientated. This is the perfect companion for if you're traveling abroad. It really is. It's just a stunning watch. It sits beautifully on the wrist. It's a very, very comfortable watch to own. It's one of those watches that if you don't know your watches, you can wear this and nobody would give you a second look, which, it's got the understated value, which I like. The problem is if you're wearing a Rolex, everybody knows you're wearing a Rolex. They are a little bit stand out. They do stand out in a crowd. You can argue as well they're a little bit on the common side, whereas, the Tudor GMT is by no means a rare watch, but it's not going to be on the wrist of everybody's wrist. The Tudor GMT is more, I would say, a connoisseur's watch. It's something that you've got to admire for what it is. A lot of people will argue that the Tudor has simply ripped off the design of the Rolex. That isn't the case. Remember that Rolex and Tudor, they are very, 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 very close relations. This watch is supposed to be like the Rolex GMT. It's a nod to the past. It's a nod to Rolex and Tudor's past. It incorporates different features from different watches. The snowflake hands, the aluminium bezel, the having the nice Tudor rose, having the riveted bracelet, things like that. They're all nods to different eras and different watches. It's a watch, you can argue it doesn't necessarily know what it is, but it is a stunning incorporation of multiple watches. Very, very comfortable watch, very comfortable to wear, very, very good wrist presence, fantastic tool watch, 70-hour power reserve. You can take this off on a Friday and put it back on a Monday morning, and it's still got the power to keep going. It's just, you know, credit to Tudor. 70-hour power reserve is a very, very impressive accomplishment. You can see there the date window. Definitely, without the Cyclops, it's just stunning, absolutely stunning. And it's one of the it's one of the movements that I know people have had problems with the date window not clocking over properly. People have been, you know, like there it's on a 9. People have had it where it's stuck between the 9 and the 10. Touch wood, this watch hasn't done that. I've had no problems with it, but I have heard that that is an issue on some people's watches. Like I say, I haven't experienced it. It's not something that I've come across yet. I bought this watch in July 2018, so, you know, I've had it a year now, and touch wood, I've had no problems with it. It's aged very, very well. Like you'll have seen on my Rolexes, my watches are not cradled. They are worn and enjoyed. You can see a few little faint marks, but nothing major. The case of the watch, the bracelet of the watch, is all holding up very, very well to wear and tear. You can see a little bit there where the clasp is rubbing a little bit, but you know, it's to be expected. This watch has been on a few adventures with me. It's been enjoyed. It's been thoroughly enjoyed and worn. Yeah, I mean, what more can I say? It's a stunning, stunning watch. Would I recommend it to somebody purchasing a GMT? Absolutely, I would. Would I suggest that people buy this over the GMT, the Rolex GMT? I think if you want a Rolex GMT, then you want a Rolex GMT, go buy the Rolex GMT, but be prepared to pay a massive premium. This watch is 2,830 British pounds. That's you know, sterling. This video was made July 2019. £2,830 brand new from an AD, and you don't have the long waiting list for this watch. You might have to wait a short time, but you know, you're not going to be waiting anywhere near the length of time you have to wait for a Rolex GMT. The residual value on the watch is excellent. They don't lose money. Because there is a little bit of a waiting list, they do have a slight rarity value to them. So if you were lucky enough to get one, you could, you know, if you got bored of it after 6 months, you can put it online and get your money back and maybe even make a small profit. So it's by no means dead money. It is a good investment. I do believe that this watch is going to be a future classic, and it's going to be something that in the years to come will go up in value. I don't think Tudor will keep the watch exactly as it is for a long time. I think Tudor will update this watch, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but in the following year. Prices will go up. Tudor is due to have a price increase in the near future, so it's definitely an investable watch. Between the Rolex GMT and the Tudor, like I say, I own both watches. I like the understated value of the Tudor. I like the fact that it is what it is without being shouty. I like the fact it's a tool watch, but on the other hand, I do like the Rolex GMT for what it is as well. The Rolex GMT is a classic, and you know, it's an unbeaten GMT in my opinion. However, at this price point, at £2,830, I cannot think of a single GMT on the market which I would have other than this watch. You know, the Rolex GMT would be my first choice, the Tudor GMT would be my second choice, and it's that simple. The Omega do a nice line of GMTs with the Planet Ocean range, but they are ceramic watches, which, you know, ceramic watches chip. They, you know, yes, fine, they don't scratch as easy, but they chip. At least with a steel watch, you can polish marks out. If you have a chip in a ceramic, you have got a chip in the ceramic for the rest of the watch's life. So the Tudor GMT is definitely my second choice next to the Rolex GMT, but at this price point, you know, anything under £5,000, it's got to be the Tudor GMT from the Black Bay range. It's just a no-brainer. Absolutely stunning watch, fantastic on the wrist, great to wear, great to own, lovely design features, and a very, very dependable, good timekeeping watch. I will be doing a full review of this watch in depth, but this is just one, just to whet your appetite. Like I said, people have been asking what watches do I have in the collection. This is one of them. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to check out my other videos. I've reviewed a range of different watches and talked about multiple subjects. Check out those other videos, leave me a like, leave me a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. This is Just My Opinion UK.